Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast, episode number 46, game week episode. Level, we actually have just hit, depending when you're listening to it, this week is the 1-year anniversary for the Ask Level podcast. So welcome and happy 1-year anniversary with me. Did you get me anything?
Yeah, I got you just like a high five,
Okay.
and like I'll dap you up next time I see you, and we'll hug it out. But yeah, nothing tangible or anything.
That's okay. I think that'll be all right with me.
Yeah, I think we're both adults, grown men. Hopefully, sometimes we act as such, sometimes we don't. But it's been a full year, I guess, with doing this deal. It's been fun. But yeah, man, I'm you always get to this point, and obviously there's just things you have to cycle through, spring football, and these are all necessary. But this is why we do this. This is why we enjoy following this time of the year, because it all points to this. And no more hitting on each other, no more speculation about starters or if you're going to be good here or there. It all starts to play out rather quickly. And
right.
And what always fascinates me about once the games start is that you spend, December-ish through August or September 1st speculating on all kinds of things that you think about your team, about other teams, about leagues and whatever. And then you get going and the variables change, and they change rapidly at some level, with injuries, or some coach does something stupid, he gets himself fired, or whatever. It's just like the variables change rather quickly. And then it's like, okay, well, all that stuff we discussed in the last 9 months, just toss it out because it's all meaningless. But anyway, but we get game action this week. You're right, and won't be an easy one for the Red Raiders. I think War Memorial Stadium. I think Wyoming, over their history, they've won 70% of their games up there. It's the highest field or stadium in college, above sea level, like 7,200 ish. And that's why, obviously we've talked about this. We're going up on Thursday,
right?
Because Joey wants to get his guys acclimated to it. They want to practice in it on Friday morning, and so away we go. But I guess next time we reconvene, we'll know a lot, and hopefully it's good.
Yeah, we'll talk plenty of the football game and looking towards Wyoming, but let's get some of the other stuff out of the way first, starting with Brett Yormark, Pac-12, pods, these sorts of things. There's a couple of questions related to the realignment front. So the first one, asked by Matt, asks, what will the pods look like in the new Big 12 with the additions of the four corner schools, or what will the scheduling look like for football and basketball?
This is being discussed now. I think internally it's been discussed. I don't know if they're any closer to coming up with what they want to do, because here's what the end game here. There's two things that I think are at the forefront of the way you would prefer to schedule, and they're not. It's meshing these concepts together is kind of what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you can, ideally mesh them together perfectly to where it's like, okay, I get it. But I think they're going to try. But what you want to do, whether it's divisions or pods or whatever, the biggest goal that you've got as a league is how are we fair about this?
Mm-hmm.
How do we limit travel? But ultimately, how do we spit it out to where we can get the two best teams playing in the league title game?
Yep.
And that's what you want. divisions are a clean way to do it, but I don't know if that gets you the two best teams. We saw that with the Big 12 North and South years ago.
Plenty.
It's the easy, low-hanging fruit way to do this deal. It's like, yeah, well, let's just do North and the South or an East and a West, and it sure seems simple. Division winners play, and away we go. But that's just, I don't think that gets you to your goal. So I think that they will look strongly at whether you want to call it a pod system or travel partners that you're paired or partnered with. And I think with that, you create and keep the regional rivalries as best you can, even though we've lost so many of those. And then you also limit some of the travel with your team, which I think everybody is sort of mindful of. But, on paper, to me, I'll make sure I don't forget somebody here, but it would just seemingly be very smart for Tech, Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU to kind of always be playing each other.
Yeah.
And then you come up with, okay, well, then we are paired with another pod this year, and then this pod that year, and then that's what gets you your 8 or 9 conference games. But the four, well, I say that the four. I think the 2 schools in Utah and the 2 schools in Arizona would seemingly make a lot of sense. It keeps those regional rivalries, and those games are going to be played every year, which is what you want. I think Colorado paired up with the 2 schools in Kansas and Iowa, I think makes some sense. And then you've kind of got that East pod with it. It's what would be Cincinnati,
West
Houston,
Virginia.
West Virginia, Central Florida, and Houston would be kind of, in that. And so that's, to me, that, like, as I look at it, maybe there's something I'm not thinking about. That seemingly looks to me like the easiest, best for all parties. But then it's like you figure out a way. Okay, now what constitutes our other games? Do we play 2 of the 3 pods every year, and then it's kind of a rotate? I mean, that's the. But
I've even seen someone talk about like the NFL style based off of how you play your pod and then you go how teams finished last year, schedule, how tough your schedule
which
is.
Which is a formula, and then there's an algorithm to it.
Yeah, that'd be a little difficult, but
like personal preference, I don't want to see this. It's just dumb. I think it's really stupid when I hear, like Florida hasn't played, Alabama for 8 years.
I agree.
And so it's, or A&M
I think,
has it.
The A&M Georgia thing. I think A&M was in the league 8 years before they played Georgia the first time, which is crazy.
That is just silly to me.
Yeah.
So I would love some, to where you're seeing all these teams, every couple of 3 years, that's the point of this deal. And they've got basketball questions to answer too, from a scheduling standpoint, and baseball. Sure. And it's a bit cumbersome now because this is a big league with 16 teams in it. So, I don't know what they end up spitting out, but these are decisions and discussions that are ongoing right now because you need a football schedule here. I don't know, in the next 3 to 5 months, and you'd hope sooner than later, closer to 3 than it is 5. But that's the way this is going to go.
No doubt. Another one on the realignment front. This question says, are there any real possibilities to 2 or 4 of the other Pac-12 schools coming to the Big 12 if ESPN pushes for it?
I don't believe so, because ESPN would have already pushed for it. If ESPN wanted you to do this, this would have been news we would talked about a week or 2 ago whenever all this was happening. If there was value there, if these TV partners that are funding you money, if they were like, yeah, we want these schools in this league, because they've been just flapping in the wind for a while, trying to join the ACC, trying to figure out what they're going to do. If ESPN preferred that you be a part of that, I think when you were expanding with your league, they would have, but there's no value there. I don't know what the ACC is going to come up with on all that. It also doesn't make a lot of sense. I think with, so I think the Big 12 will sit tight right now. I really do. I think,
it sounds like it by Brett Yormark's comments that's what they want to do too.
Yeah. And I think it, maybe in time, if you do the basketball only kind of flirtation again, but I ultimately think that the next time you would expand, that you would seriously consider is if something were to happen with the ACC. Florida State says peace out. Clemson says, hey man, this isn't working for us. And there's some schools to be had on the East Coast that would seemingly be. I just don't. I don't think Stanford would ever want to join your league. I don't think you really want Stanford in your league.
Yeah.
And Oregon State, Washington State offer no value to you, and Cal is just they don't care about athletics, and they're in major debt with their athletic department, and on it goes. So I think that the dream scenario took place, and I really believe that's what, from talking to people that Brett Yormark was talking to, I think that's how internally, that's how they really feel. And so, not that it's unicorns and rainbows and puppy dogs and all that stuff, and that you're going to make $1 gazillion or whatever, and there's still this gap and all that. But I think that with what you had to work with, you hit a home run.
Yeah, I think he said exactly that. Yormark did, that this was the dream scenario to get to 16 teams and get those 4 particular schools, and the Big 12 sitting there. Also, Brett Yormark says some other stuff that catches some national headlines this week. Of course, you and I are at the Red Raider Club kickoff luncheon on Wednesday, and he points directly to Coach McGuire and says, I'm going to be in Austin Thanksgiving. I hope you take care of business, or I'm wanting you to take care of business just like you did in Lubbock this past year. And that sent all of the Longhorn and Sooner fans, we see them unite for once, and they all went into a little bit of a fit mode there. Was it fair or foul for his comments as the league commissioner?
I think I'll keep this PG because I really want to be drawn off sides here.
You're welcome to. Come on.
Look, whenever you and I were sitting basically next to each other at the table, we were, I don't know, 20 yards, maybe 15 yards away from Brett Yormark as he said these things. I never really thought it would be like, oh my gosh moment as I'm listening to him talk about this. I just kind of thought it was funny. And again, at these venues, you're kind of playing to the crowd and all these things. I think if I think it would be extremely naive for any Oklahoma fan or Texas fan to think that current commissioner would love to hand the Big 12 trophy after the season to one of those two head coaches. Like you've got to be completely head in the sand. It's just buffoonery on your part. Like, how naive can you be? You chose to bolt. Of course he doesn't want you to win.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't want to hand the trophy to you. You're out, man. Like and I think people have kind of been curious about the candidly, because he's like, candidly, we got Texas and Oklahoma out a year early. He's like, I think that was a big deal to me. I know it was a big deal to you all. The reason he's saying that is because this TV deal, which he talked about quite a bit, it was not going to be allowed to be done unless you get some closure with everything. So they were trying to negotiate an exit so they knew what they had to work with on paper, and they could go ahead and get it going, get it done, and agree to it without having this loose change in your pocket, right? That you don't you have any idea what to do with. So that's why he said what he said, and that's what he means. That's where he's coming from on that. I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny that so many people were drawn off sides about this and the holier than thou folks, because if we could go back and count how many times that we felt like OU or Texas were running the league and there were conspiracy theorists and man, they should open up an investigation. Well, it was always laughable for the Tech fan or any other fan to suggest that about their school, and like you feel like you're getting screwed. I thoroughly enjoyed, and I hope that these comments are replayed all season. I hope he says that. I hope he says these things again. I hope he, I mean, I don't care if Texas puts it on their bulletin board or what. I don't really care. I just think that it's an obvious. I mean, are you? It's just like it's just, I don't know. It makes my head want to explode. So sorry, but without using a 4-letter word or something,
it did pretty well.
Yeah, it just kills me. So, anyways, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed and the reaction, and I can't take it very seriously either. I mean, people have been on the news. I saw some TV reporter in Austin calling it classless and
oh my gosh,
all these things. It's just, man, just stop, man. You are I mean, and I even saw like, well, he's going to have to like come back and like, offer up a public apology about this. Well, hey man,
Why?
yeah, nope. I mean, checking my watch, it's been several days now. No public apologies. I mean, I'm sure Brett Yormark's not perfect. He's going to step in it on occasion. Did he do it there? No, it's an obvious. I mean,
Right.
so I just think that, and I think some of the folks that cover the sport, year round, that do it nationally, they got that part too. They understood, like, what was everybody thinking? Why does everybody have an issue with
Right.
this? Of course he doesn't want, so anyway.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. Why would you want any of the teams to be able to hoist that trophy in their last
Yeah, and,
last
and, and
year?
do I think he's gonna go into the meeting room with the officials before the game and say, all right, guys, you know what to do, wink wink? No. And anybody that's suggesting that is just, that's where
Silly.
people are trying to take this to.
Right. It's
So
silliness. But
yeah, exactly.
fan is short for fanatic for a reason. And you hop on a message board or go on to Twitter and you'll see that pretty quickly.
Yep.
All right, one more sort of piece of business to take care of. Someone asked about the Under Armour contract. I know you've talked about it, I think, in recent weeks, but I know Kirby was also asked this question in the media setting last week, and he didn't really give anything. He just said we're in as good of a spot as we've been at Texas Tech brand wise as we've ever been. So is Texas Tech going to be an Under Armour school? Is Under Armour a player? Where's that sit right now, Level?
Well, you've got one more year left on your Under Armour agreement. I think it ends next summer. And so, yeah, there's an exclusive negotiating period that they're in right now. I think Under Armour can match any deal that is offered up to you. And I think where a lot of the speculation is coming from is there's a lot of chatter about Adidas and Pat Mahomes and his brand and all these things. And so, but, just so people hear what I'm saying, Adidas could make some big offer and Tech may even want to do that. But Under Armour would have the right to match that, and Tech would have to accept that offer from Under Armour. That they've negotiated that. It's part of their, and they've been partners with Under Armour for 17 years. And I think that they appreciate that partnership, but I think the Mahomes thing is extremely intriguing. And I think where Kirby is suggesting is our brand is really, because football's got some buzz about it. You've got all these renovations going. I think there's some, the league is kind of feels puffed up now. Like you got some stability and all that. And now with an apparel deal, you've kind of got some competition. You've got some leverage a bit. So I just know this, whatever the next apparel deal that you get will be better than what you've had because there's some competition. And I think it's going to help Texas Tech ultimately. So whatever they end up with, I don't think Nike is involved. I don't think they've ever been involved. I don't think they want to be involved. And I know some fans may want them. Why don't we call up Nike? They're not taking your call. Okay. So we're clear. But I think Adidas and Under Armour are both very interested. Under Armour doesn't want to lose you, and Adidas is very interested, I think, in getting, Adidas people have been here. They've been on campus for many hours fairly recently, and I think they'll be back actually. But again, that doesn't change the fact that Under Armour has the right. And Tech ultimately has to do what's best for their school and where they get the best deal, but they would have to go with Under Armour if Under Armour matches whatever deal is offered, or if there is no other offer from another company, then you try to negotiate a new better deal with, because you ultimately want an offer from Adidas,
sure,
because that
right
that allows you to kind of either potentially make the switch or get a better deal from Under Armour if they want to keep you. And and Under Armour just re-upped with Notre Dame, big deal. Under Armour, I believe, just is close to taking over at some point soon Kansas State. I think Kansas State, wanted a little more out of Nike. Nike said, "Yeah, we're good." And so I think, and the fans, I think in Manhattan, I think for the most part have not embraced that news.
Yeah.
So I think the Under Armour stuff starts with Kansas State maybe a year from now, like next summer.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, but yeah, Under Armour's definitely involved and wants to stay involved in the college space. They bought their way out of some bad deals like the UCLA deal. I'm trying to
Right.
think of some of the other ones that it was just
Bad business.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, I know a lot of people. I mean, people care about jerseys, people care about apparel. So I know that's a hot topic always. And of course that's a year-ish away from really getting settled. Okay, a couple of questions from the audience, and we'll talk some actual football on the field coming up this week. Leah asks this one from Twitter Hacks. Whatever happened to Bob Huggins' situation? Is he still suing West Virginia? Is he still married? It's kind of random.
It's it is random. I think it's still ongoing. I don't expect him to go away quietly. The legalese of this will take a while for it to play out. Do I expect him to coach this year? No, I don't. I think they've moved on. I think the university really can't comment on it. I've heard Ren Baker, their AD, kind of go, "Yeah, we can't legally. I'm not allowed to speak on this topic anymore. That's being handled by people above his pay grade. It's the lawyers. Billable hours is what ultimately will win there."
Yep.
Did they reach some sort of settlement? Did they tell him to kick rocks? I don't know. Some lawyer for West Virginia and Huggins' attorneys will deal with that. The sad part about the whole thing, and Huggins definitely has plenty to. It's a similar different circumstances, but it's a similar situation to like Mike in Tech, to where I mean, and maybe even a lot different compared to Huggins, because Huggins is he's a lifelong Mountaineer. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's got all this stuff, and it's like now there's this bad relationship between the school and this man.
Sure.
And he had done so much. He screwed up, make no mistake, but it's just kind of awkward for all parties now that like you can't, be on the same page and celebrate his career together going forward. Right. I mean, all that kind of stuff. So that's the tricky part. So I don't know what they come up with, but boy, Ren Baker stepped into one of the toughest scenarios in the country from an athletic department standpoint.
Yeah, everything for him.
I mean, he already had he's already going to have to deal with the Neil Brown situation. He already knew that when he took the job, and then the Huggins thing. There was just
I'm pretty sure. I think Randy Mazey also announced he's done the baseball coach after this year. So he's going to he's having to replace all the big
triumvirate
coaches. Yeah, it's crazy.
Of all the
he came from North Texas, right? And that he was
he's the one that hired Grant McCaslin.
That's right. So
in North Texas, because people were. The first time Huggins stepped in it, people were automatically going, okay, Ren Baker,
right. Yeah,
he doesn't know that many people. Is he going to call Grant? Grant had already been the coach here. I don't think McCaslin would have done that, but and he may have called him and be like, hey, who would you talk to if you were me, kind of thing. But anyway,
okay. So some football level. You mentioned earlier Tech and Wyoming. This will not be an easy road trip. Not an easy game up there. You mentioned the elevation, that sort of thing. But what is kind of interesting, if you're into this sort of thing, is the folks out west in the desert do think this is going to be fairly easy. Texas Tech, a 14.5-point favorite going into this game at Wyoming. Are you surprised that you're a 2-touchdown road favorite?
No. I don't. I think in fact I want to say that spread. When I saw it when somebody posted something a long time ago, like in the summer months, I say a long time ago. I think I even saw it at 11 or 12, and I think it's kind of gone up since.
It has, yes.
Wyoming's got some injuries at running back. I think this is a team that is very good on defense. This is what they kind of hang their hat on. I don't think they will change a whole lot from what they do. I think Craig Bowl is an old school coach. I think there's, it's just kind of, hey, this is what we do. This is where we're going to be. This is how we're going to play it. Good luck. That's just kind of, I think his mantra. And, it's not like you push all your chips to the table for the first game. And Texas Tech will be careful too with what they show with Oregon coming up next, all these things. But typically what Wyoming has been is they play they really load the box and really take away your ability to run the football. If that is indeed the case, you're daring Texas Tech to throw it, and so and in most cases you're going to have man-to-man coverage because that's just kind of how that's how they've played it. They move a safety into the box and they do what they sell out to stop the run. So that could be a situation where Tyler and guys like Jerron Bradley and Dre McCray or Miles Price, guys like that, they really have some room in one-on-one situations out there. So we'll see. I think offensively, if I'm Wyoming, this is my concern. I think right now they're set to start 2 freshmen and 2 sophomores and a junior on the offensive line. That's what Tony and Jalen Hutchings would be dealing with up front, and you would like to think that you've got really good interior linemen. That could be a problem for a Wyoming team that they're not explosive.
Yeah.
They average about 21 a game last year on offense. They try to run it. This is it's going to be a very Kansas State, Iowa State-ish type game where they try to shorten the game. They huddle. Right. The possessions will be limited. It'll be one of those deals. But it's also a scenario where if Texas Tech can put a couple of scores up early or get a multiple score lead on Wyoming will have a really hard time, coming back. They're just not really built like that. So, I think a young offensive line and some injuries at running back really kind of hampers even how explosive they could be. And again, if your defensive line is what you think it is, that would be a matchup that you would think that you have, thumbs up in. So we will see.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated though. Like there's things that we think we know about this team that we just don't,
Sure.
I mean, because the Steve Lintons and things like that, he may not flash in a game like this because they may not drop back to throw it a ton.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's just all kinds of dynamics here with this opponent. Now he'll get plenty of opportunities the following week if he doesn't get any week 1. I can assure you of that. But
no, I think if you have your ideal scenario, you're forcing them into passing situations that they don't want to be in because they're having to play catch up, and that's where you get to see those guys. The pass rush shine a little bit there. But as cliche as it is, a fast start is very important in this kind of game because you really want to make them play from behind and not be able to control the clock.
Yeah, you want to be explosive. That's the thing that I would say offensively that they would wish for the most this season. If I could say, hey man, yes, of course, it's an obvious. Don't turn the ball over.
Sure.
We want to be efficient in the red
normals,
zone. We want to convert on 3rd and 4th downs and all that stuff. But really, you want to be explosive. I think that would be maybe a top goal for you. Hence the reason that you add Dre McCray and you've done some different things with your offensive line just to allow for some explosive type plays. But that's really what your hope would be, and hopefully we see it in week 1.
A couple more questions regarding football before we close this down. Here's a fun one from Rob. Do Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes have a bet going for this game?
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if they do or not, but that's funny. That's 2 of the best to do it right now, and it's I'm sure that in passing that has been brought up to one or both of those guys for sure.
Right.
And I will tell you, I think Davis Webb, ironically enough, I think Davis Webb is actually, I think he's on the Broncos coaching staff. I think he's calling plays for Sean Payton, or he's on that staff. I think I'm right there, Choice.
I think you are correct. Yep.
Yeah, you may check me on that if I'm not. But yeah, he's going to be at this game because it's just up the road from Denver. I think it's a 2-hour drive, 2-hour trip from Denver, and I think it's obviously the NFL season doesn't get going this week, so I think Davis Webb's gonna go check it out. But that's another quarterback that we can mention from years past. But I don't know about Josh and Pat. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of crazy to think 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league. This is kind of the square off of their 2 teams. Couple more questions from Twitter. One more positive, one more negative, if you want to take it that way. But this one from Paulo says, will this team have a short memory of a previous game? Meaning, will they win a big game one week and drop a turd the next week?
Well, your goal is to always have a team, and that's what I think Joey's done a phenomenal job of preaching what's next.
Sure.
It's not, good or bad. I mean, you move on, and it's not about Oregon yet. It's not about playing Texas yet. It's not about any of this stuff. It's about playing Wyoming. And then, I think that's why they were able to string some of those together last year, because they didn't dwell on the win the week before or whatever. I mean, they always kind of wanted more. And yeah, I think this is a very mature football team. It doesn't guarantee you that you're going to win 10 or 11 games or anything, but I think it's a very mature football team, and it's easier to get those guys. What's fascinating to me about this team is that there's a variety of different players in media settings that have talked about acting like a pro. And this is Joey's message to his guys. And I even heard Zarnell Fitch talk about it with, some of his guys the other day. And I'm trying to remember what player he is mentioning, but it's a guy that hadn't really done a whole lot yet, but he's kind of turned the corner. I think it may have been like Doodle Banks, actually, is who he was talking about. A guy that's kind of been on the roster a bit, kind of gone through the red shirt. He's just kind of, but his time is now. But what they talk about as coaches is that, hey man, he's really turned his life around. He's doing the things like nutrition wise. He's really got his grades in order. And it's made him a better football player. So it's like when you have your life in order and all the things that you're supposed to be doing are going well, it's amazing how much better you play. When you're minding your P's and Q's and everything, with stuff that has nothing to do with football, but it does pertain to it in a way. And so it's all about being a professional, acting, like a professional, and sleep patterns and the nutrition and film study and all that kind of spills over into it. But this is a mature team, so I don't think that this is a group that will get caught up into their own hype. I think that they feel like they've been doubted actually quite a bit, which they have, and they've got a goal on playing in Arlington, but will not be easy. There's next to no margin for error here, man. Like I don't know if a 6-3 league record is good enough to put you in Arlington. And think about it. You went 5-4 in the league last year. That was the first winning record you'd had in conference since 2009. And here I would tell you, what if you're better than that this year? Just one game better? That still may not be good enough. You may have to go 7-2 in the league to give yourself, a realistic chance. Well, and even then, that may not be good enough. There may be a couple of 8-1s out there in the league race. And so it just goes to show you, there's just not margin for error is razor thin.
Well, I think adding teams is part of that, having more teams in the mix that makes it more difficult to get there. Because you were one game away. Remember, you win that K-State game, Texas Tech's playing in the Big 12 title game last year. That's the one that was different.
And this is different because not everybody plays everybody. I think if you had Oklahoma's schedule, I think a lot of people would point to you and go, look out, but you don't. You have a bit of a tougher one, at least on paper.
OU and OSU both have pretty cupcake schedules this year. All right, one more question from Andrew. A good one here. Level, can you name one football player and one new football player and new basketball player that you're most excited to watch this year?
Yeah, so these are new additions. I think football wise, I'm going to go back to Linton. I think we've heard so much about him. I think that he's a player that if Texas Tech is really good, I almost think he has to be a part of it from a pass rush or playmaker standpoint on defense. I think Joey's told us about him really since March. However, what should have Tech fans intrigued, ignore the head coach here, but start looking at some of the NFL draft stuff that's starting to come out by people that are unbiased, that do this for a living, that just try to tell you. And he's starting to be listed in some of the top edge rushers in the country type stuff, even though technically he's got 2 years to play here. I think most people are kind of operating. This may be a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And so I think, and it got slipped in there the other day. Hey, yeah, Steve Linton had like 4 sacks in the scrimmage the other day. I mean, those are being told to you for a reason. It's not just slipped in there on accident. I think he's got, he's practiced some this fall camp with a club. He's going to have a dinged up thumb, but this is the guy that I'm looking forward to watching, because he's got a chance to kind of take you from pretty good on defense to, to replacing Tyree as best as possible. Okay. So there's football. That's the guy that I'm maybe most excited to watch. Basketball wise, I would tell you it's Warren Washington.
Mhm.
I think you could get into a variety of different people here, but that's the guy. You could go to Toussaint, you could go to Cambridge, you could go to, let's see, McMillan.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to remember.
There's a lot to pick from on this.
Yeah,
this
but
team. Yeah.
Warren Washington is the guy that I think, because I think you have a legit rim protector. I think
Yeah.
you have a guy that is mature. He's been here. He wasn't a late addition. He was here, you know, for the bulk of the offseason. And I've talked to Grant about him, and he's like, you know, he's always been kind of hovering around a double-double guy. He goes, we really think he can take that next step and be a more of a focal point, because he's never been on a team that's asked more of him than kind of what we're going to do. And we think he can answer that. And so I think I love his measurables. He's a veteran, and now he's got some comfortability, and he's got a teammate in Devin Cambridge and all that stuff. So I just that's a guy that I'll be really excited to watch, because he's a starter, make no mistake. And you don't really have, you know, with what you added, you don't really have a backup to him, you know. So it's a bit tricky.
Yeah.
He'll play plenty of minutes. Let's just hope for no foul trouble for Mr. Washington.
No doubt. Level, it's game week, man. I'm excited.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully get to gather again a week from now and talk about a win number 1 of the season.
Yes, sir. Let's do it, man. Well, hopefully we'll see some of you up in Laramie.
Yep.
If not, enjoy it and listen to us on 97.3 or affiliate around the state. Obviously, television is an option as well. So we shall see. It's almost showtime.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Level.
Sir. All right. Appreciate it, man. Keep hope alive, everybody.
That's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. You've been tuned in to the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.